Relax, your boss paid for this trip, for what I do in his bed. She says it like a toast, dark cherry wine flashing in the last slit of Caribbean sun. 48 hours married, and something in me doesn't crack. It clicks. I'm not a kid you humiliate for sport. I'm a man with a payroll ID, a credit score, people who know my work and my name. She waits for tears, for shouting, the cheap scene she rehearsed on the flight. I give her nothing. I set my glass down so gently the rim barely kisses the table. Huh, I say, like she told a bad joke at a barbecue. Her smile widens, certain she's already won. I stand, steady, and step inside to grab a towel, letting the door hush behind me. Cold water on my face, metal on my tongue, breath in a slow count of 4. Phone in my hand, contacts on the screen, evidence in my cloud. When I walk back onto that balcony, the ocean's still there, the wine's still red, and my voice is perfectly calm. If she wanted a reaction, she's about to get consequences. 48 hours after the vows, I studied the woman across from me like a stranger in my own house. Ava twirled her wine, bored, almost amused. I remembered the toasts, the photos, the promises about partnership and honesty. My parents stayed married 40 years by telling each other hard truths. I thought I'd done the same. Maybe that's a young man's mistake, assuming love keeps score fairly. I didn't cry. I listened to the waves hit rock like a metronome. In my head, I ran a checklist older men taught me. Protect your name, protect your job, protect your future. Rage burns fast and leaves you empty. Process runs longer and leaves a trail. I watched her watch me, waiting for me to break. That's when something settled. Not peace, not forgiveness. A gear clicking into place. I set my glass down, steady. If she wanted spectacle, she'd picked the wrong audience. If she wanted power, she just handed me motive. Ava smiled the way people smile when they think traffic laws don't apply to them. You really thought your salary could swing this? She said, flicking her ring into the light. I thought about every overtime hour, every pot of stale office coffee, every Monday morning I dragged myself in because responsible men do that. There's a particular kind of humiliation adults feel, when effort meets contempt. It ages you in seconds. I let that sting pass through me like a cold front. My dad used to say, "You can tell a person by how they treat the help." That line hit me now. I was the help in my own marriage. I reached for the railing, felt the salt air cool my knuckles, and chose a new story. I wouldn't be the man who shouts on a balcony. I'd be the man who documents, reports, and walks away with his spine intact. I told her I needed a towel. I needed a plan. Inside, the hotel bathroom felt like a safe room. White tile, bright light, a mirror that doesn't lie. I rinsed my face and looked myself in the eye. When life blindsides you at 30 or 50, the rules are the same. Breathe, buy time, write things down. I put my phone on airplane mode. It keeps accidents from calling the wrong person and buys privacy. I opened notes and typed the exact sentence she'd said, word for word. If you've ever managed a family crisis, medical bills, a busted transmission, you know the value of exact names and dates. My hands shook, so I braced them on the counter and counted 4 in, 4 out. A quick text to myself stored a time-stamped record in the cloud. Evidence isn't revenge, it's a seatbelt. I listened. Shower water, muffled humming. Good. I unlocked airplane mode, scrolled to Jake Nolan, HR. Adults know which friend to call for a move, which for a loan, which for trouble at work. I hit record. Jake, it's Tom Bennett, I said, keeping my voice flat. Serious ethics breach. My supervisor, my wife, corporate funds. I have documentation. Call me back. I paused, then added what older mentors drilled into me. I will submit written details. Voicemail isn't a confession booth, it's a breadcrumb you lay on purpose. I ended the call, saved the number to recent, screenshotted the log, then deleted the call from the list. That's not sneaky, that's self-defense. If you've ever had to protect a reputation, false rumor at church, messy neighbor dispute, you learn to guard your paper trail. I opened the hotel safe, tucked my passport and wedding license inside, and took a photo of the contents. People lie. Time smears memory. Photos don't. I dried my face, practiced a neutral smile, and walked back out. Ava was scrolling, unbothered, like the world pays rent for her. Everything okay? she asked. Fine, I said. The heart calmed. The plan, not so much. Plans want momentum. I set my phone face down and lifted my glass. Beautiful night, I said. Men in their 30s and 60s know that sentence. It buys you 10 seconds to think. Ava stretched, then announced she needed a shower before her 9 o'clock call. She didn't say Daniel's name, but she didn't need to. Doors teach you things. When hers clicked shut, I let my face fall, just for a beat, the way you do in a parking lot after getting bad medical news. Then I got to work. I forwarded my notes to a private email. I exported photos to a hidden album. I checked the Wi-Fi name. Hotel network, not some fake hotspot. Paranoia keeps you alive. Confirmation keeps you sane. I drafted a simple timeline. Wedding, flight, balcony, quote, voicemail. If you've ever sat with a banker about a refinance, you know how timelines can save you money. They can also save your skin. The shower cut off. My minute was up. Ava came back in a robe that wasn't hers, hair damp, phone in hand. 9, she said, like the hour belonged to her. She perched on the bed, dialed, and softened her voice. That fake tenderness people use for bosses and borrowed money. I stepped onto the balcony again and listened to the ocean clap. It's odd how calm shows up when you finally pick a road. I remembered being 25 and taking my first layoff like a personal insult. Today felt different. I was choosing action, not swallowing fate. Through the glass, I watched her smile at the phone, like a teenager with a crush and a credit card. Men my age don't chase attention. We chase stability. That thought steadied me. I texted Jake a second time. Urgent. Ethics issue. Paper trail exists. Available 7 a.m. Then I powered down to keep my battery for morning. Ava ended her call with a little laugh. She believed Monday belonged to her. I was giving Monday to consequences. Night settled the way it does after an argument at Thanksgiving. Everyone pretending they're fine, nobody digesting. We watched a movie on mute like roommates. On the surface, peace. Underneath, currents. Older folks know that kind of quiet. You learn to read it in waiting rooms and living rooms. When she yawned and said she was exhausted, I nodded and let her sleep. I sat at the small desk and wrote 3 truths on hotel stationery. I am not crazy. I am not small. I am not done. It felt corny and necessary, like putting a hand on a kid's shoulder before a hard day. I set an alarm for 6:30. HR people are morning people. Trouble lands better with daylight. I packed my carry-on with the few things that mattered. Wallet, ID, a copy of our marriage license, my work laptop. If you've ever left in a hurry, bad landlord, worse breakup, you know the rule. Leave light, leave smart. I slept 3 hours, enough for clarity. The phone buzzed at 6:47 a.m. The body remembers early alarms from decades of commutes. I was wide awake before the tone finished. Jake's text, "Holy hell, check email in 10. Relief and nerves did that old 2-step in my chest. I made hotel coffee that tastes like cardboard and courage, opened the curtains, and let the blue morning in. Ava slept on her side, phone charging by the lamp. I looked at her, really looked. Not the bride from the photos, not the woman from date nights. A person who makes choices and calls them needs. We all do, I suppose. That doesn't mean I have to subsidize hers. I logged into my inbox, hovered over refresh, and thought about the older guys at work who taught me the clean way through a mess. Tell the truth, back it with paper, stay polite, be relentless. The email landed like a gavel. I didn't open it yet. I watched the second-hand sweep. Some moments deserve ceremony. Subject line, immediate termination, Daniel Hartman. I read it twice, the way you read a diagnosis or a debt cleared at last. HR had moved overnight. Expense abuse, ethics violations, security escort. Another email followed, a courtesy notice to Catherine, his wife. The world was shifting in real time, and I hadn't raised my voice once. I glanced at Ava's phone on the nightstand. Same passcode she insisted I use. My birthday, neat little circle. Trust is funny. It's only noble when both people honor it. I snapped photos of her recent messages with the camera widget, not opening anything, just catching previews. Times, names, patterns. Evidence is a bridge, not a weapon. Use it to cross, not to kill. I forwarded both emails to a personal folder and printed PDFs to my cloud. Then I poured a second coffee and set it by the bed. When she stirred, I smiled the way grown men smile in courtrooms and closings. "Morning," I said. "Busy day ahead." The email hit at 7 o'clock a.m. Wow, sharp. Immediate termination. Daniel Hartman. I read it twice, the way you read a test result you've been dreading and wanting at the same time. HR words were plain: ethics breach, expense abuse, security escort. Relief rose first, then a second feeling I didn't expect: chaos. When you've paid a mortgage or coached a team or sat through a hard church meeting, you know wins can be messy. I stood by the window, coffee in my hand, ocean below me, pretending the world never changes. In the mirror, I saw a man who hadn't raised his voice and still moved a mountain. I forwarded the email to my private folder and hit print to PDF like it was muscle memory. Paper, then pulse. That order keeps you steady. Behind me, Ava slept on, phone glowing on the nightstand. She would wake to a different map. I closed my inbox and let the clock tick. The first domino had fallen. Relief isn't peace. It's just a deep breath before the next choice. I poured the hotel coffee, bitter, thin, and thought of every older guy who'd taught me that discipline beats drama. Part of me wanted to wake Ava and shove the email under her nose like a traffic ticket. The other part, the grown part, knew better. You don't win arguments at dawn, you set appointments with daylight. I placed her phone on the charger, screen down, left mine on the desk so temptation wouldn't win. Money leaves a trail. Pride leaves a bigger one. Somewhere in Chicago, a security guard was walking Daniel past a lobby he used to own. I imagined the silent elevator ride, the box with the framed photo, the receptionist pretending to type. Corporate endings are private funerals. I sipped, felt my hand steady. Relief told me to relax. Wisdom told me to prepare. I opened notes and wrote a single line. Today is not a victory lap, it's a plan. Ava slept hard, the kind of sleep people have when someone else solves the bill. I watched her for a beat, not to be cruel, but to be clear. You can love someone and still name what they did. Married folks in their 50s know that truth better than anyone. I gathered my things, wallet, IDs, the marriage license, my work laptop, and set them by the door like a firefighter staging gear. If the day turned fast, I'd move faster. I checked the safe again, then took a picture of its contents. Photos are memory with timestamps. The ocean kept clapping the shore, applause for an act we weren't watching. In the bathroom, I folded the hotel stationery, a habit from business trips, and wrote 3 words: calm, clear, courteous. They sound small, but they outlast tempers. I tucked the note in my pocket and wiped the counter dry, the way you do before company comes. At 8, a knock, 2 soft taps. Not housekeeping. "Room service," a voice said. I glanced at the table. We hadn't ordered anything. My stomach tightened, not with fear, recognition. Trouble dresses in ordinary clothes. I cracked the door on the chain and saw a woman in her 50s, composed in a way hotel lobbies try to be. Tailored jacket, steady eyes, grief she kept on a short leash. I opened up. She stepped inside like she'd paid for the room and most of the floor beneath it. "Good morning," she said. "I'm Catherine Hartman." The last name carried weight. The punctuation was her posture. I thought of 100 PTA presidents and board treasurers who could quiet a room by standing. Ava stirred behind me. I gestured to the chairs. Catherine didn't sit. She placed a leather portfolio on the table, then rested a hand on it the way a pastor rests a hand on scripture. "We should talk," she said. Her voice wasn't angry. It was final. Ava's shower started running again. She opened the portfolio. Receipts, statements, reservations. A bracelet from a Michigan Avenue jeweler with Daniel's signature, hotel invoices at dates that matched text threads I'd already saved, steak dinners that would feed a Little League team. Good documentation tells its own story. This one didn't need a narrator. "Some charges are on cards tied to our household," Catherine said, calm as a clerk, steel underneath. It's the tone people use when they've called the bank, the lawyer, and their sister already. My heart didn't race. It soared. Each page was a rung on a ladder out of denial. Ava's shower stopped. The air felt colder, like the room knew a window of polite conversation was closing. If you've ever been in a meeting where truth finally gets named, you know this energy. The pause before the gavel, the nod before the vote. Catherine slid a copy toward me. "For your records." I nodded back. "Thank you." 2 adults, 1 language, paper. Ava came out in a robe, hair wet, attitude dry. "Who are—" She saw the portfolio, then the name, then Catherine's face. People talk about color draining as a figure of speech. I watched it happen. She reached for the ring, like it might rewrite the page. Catherine didn't raise her voice. "Your 9 o'clock won't happen," she said. Security escorted Daniel out. I filed for divorce at 7. A lifetime of wedding vows and Instagram captions couldn't compete with that sentence. Ava tried the script. Mistakes were made. You don't understand. We were in love. Catherine's eyebrows barely moved. "Love doesn't use corporate cards," she said. Somewhere in that moment, the roles shifted. Ava wasn't the star of her own scheme. She was a person at a kitchen table being told the check bounced. I moved to the coffee maker. Small things keep hands busy, and poured a cup, steady. "Cream?" I asked. "Black," Catherine answered. Consequences served hot. We sat at the small table that suddenly felt like a bench in a courthouse hallway. I set down cups the way you do before settling a family estate. Careful, respectful, unshakable. Catherine laid out the chain of events, not with drama, but with sequence. Dates, amounts, policy numbers. Adults know that tone. It's how you survive insurance claims and custody calendars. "You should also know," she said to me, "HR has the messages. Deleting won't help." Ava shot me a look that belonged in high school, not marriage. I didn't return it. Catherine turned to Ava. "You can choose cooperation, or you can choose whatever this is." She gestured at the robe, the mess. I thought about my mother telling us as kids, "Character is what you do after the mess." I asked for copies and scanned them to my cloud with slow, visible movements. No secrets, no surprises. When I finished, I slid the pages back and said, "Thank you." The word held. Catherine stood, smoothing her jacket, and met Ava's eyes. "Affairs end. Fraud echoes," she said. It landed like a verdict older women deliver when they're done asking. If you've ever watched a grandmother close a fight by clearing dishes, you know that grace. Firm, clean, final. Ava started to tremble, anger and fear fighting for the mic. "You can't prove—" Catherine tilted her head, not quite pitying. "We can." She tapped the portfolio. "And we will." Then she turned to me, softened by a degree. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry." People underestimate how much that sentence matters when spoken plainly. She moved to the door. Ava reached out. Habit, reflex, a last bid. Catherine stepped past it, and the latch clicked like a period. I exhaled. Not victory, not vindication. Room to breathe. The ocean outside kept doing its job. Inside, so would I. I poured the last of the coffee, black. Grown-up problems, grown-up cups. Silence did what it always does after truth. It rearranged the furniture. Ava sank onto the edge of the bed, eyes fixed on nothing, calculating a future that wouldn't take her calls. I remembered the older men at work, the ones who'd survived layoffs, divorces, even bankruptcies. They all said the same thing. Stand tall, speak plain, keep records. I opened a fresh note, logged the visit, time, names, documents reviewed. It felt clinical and kind at once, kind to my future self who would need facts when feelings got loud. Ava whispered, "This is your fault." I let the wind answer that. Blame is a young person's sport. Responsibility is heavier and less fun, but it holds. I stepped to the balcony and let salt air rinse the room's stale heat. A gull shouted like a referee. My phone buzzed. A new text. "Check email in 10. Jake again." The day wasn't done. It was just gathering speed. I didn't grin. That would be cruel. But somewhere behind my ribs, a small private smile unfolded. The kind you get when the mechanic finally hears the rattle you've described for months. Not joy, confirmation. I returned to the table, set my cup down, and met Ava's eyes without flinching. "There are going to be consequences," I said gently, like you tell a teenager the car needs returning with a full tank. She tried a last bluff. Tears, a softer voice, the promise that we could work this out. Older hearts know the difference between sorrow and strategy. I'll be civil, I said. I'll be fair, but I won't be blind. The email landed. I opened it. HR had widened the scope. Unauthorized jewelry, resorts, restaurants, line items like mile markers on a road we could see from space. I saved, backed up, and closed the laptop. Then I picked up the hotel phone and asked for a late checkout. Grown-ups finish what they start. On the flight to Chicago, Ava burned hot beside me, all hissed whispers and dagger looks. Turbulence did us a favor, gave her something else to blame for the shaking. She demanded I admit I'd overreacted, that I undo what I'd done. Married folks in their 40s know this move. Make the firefighter apologize for pulling the alarm. I stared at the seatback map, the little plane crawling toward a city where bills wait in stacks. We'll talk when we land, I said, voice even. She threatened divorce like it was a weapon I couldn't lift. Funny thing about divorce, when you've paid your own rent and kept your own calendar, you don't fear paperwork, you fear lies. I closed my eyes and pictured my desk at home, a file folder, a pen that clicks, a yellow pad. Organization beats outrage. Somewhere over Indiana, Ava leaned close, breath sweet and mean. I'll take everything. The engine droned like a judge clearing his throat. I turned my head and let silence answer. I don't practice law, but I read my mail. Illinois is no fault. Judges don't referee your heartbreak, but money trails matter. Adultery isn't the headline. Misuse is. Older friends had told me, after their own hard seasons, keep it simple, don't spin, bring paper. I made a mental list, joint accounts, the lease in my name, her car loan I co-signed because love makes optimists out of cautious men. I thought of every parent who's juggled tuition payments and braces and still kept the lights on. You learn where dollars sleep and how they wake. We touched down to that thud people clap for on international flights. No applause today. I carried our bags because muscle memory lives where romance dies. At the rideshare curb, she repeated her threat, louder this time. I'm taking everything. I finally looked her in the eye. Including the debts? I asked. The driver raised an eyebrow in the mirror. He's probably heard worse. Life keeps happening between terminals. Chicago air hit like honesty. Cool, a little rude. In the car, Ava shifted tactics. Softer voice, wounded tone. You destroyed us, she said, like we were a cake I'd dropped in the parking lot. Married couples who've survived hospital waiting rooms know the difference between hurt and manipulation. I watched the skyline come up, the one I'd chased for a decade with late nights and early alarms. I reported fraud, I said. The adultery was context. The driver cleared his throat and turned up the radio just enough to make us both feel covered. I texted Jake a quick, landed, will coordinate, and put the phone away. If you've ever had to keep your cool at a parent-teacher conference when you know your kid was provoked, you understand the art of saving it for the right room. When we pulled up to our building, Ava was already calling her mother. He's unhinged, she said into the phone. I carried the suitcases and my silence upstairs. At home, Ava staged the living room like a theater set. Blinds tilted, tissues placed, voice tuned for sympathy. She called her sister Lauren and gave the misunderstood wife monologue, how I'd overworked myself into paranoia, how Daniel was just a mentor, how Caribbean sunsets make people say silly things. Folks in their 50s know this script. They've heard it in family group texts and at church potlucks. I let her talk. Then I did what grown people do after a long trip. I unpacked. Socks in the drawer, shirts on hangers, laptop on the desk. Order is a quiet argument that wins over time. I logged into our joint account. Numbers don't perform. They testify. Balances sagged. Transfers popped up like dandelions after rain. I felt that slow, adult kind of anger. The kind that doesn't raise a voice. It raises a ledger. I took screenshots and labeled a folder. Household, Q1. She ended her call with a sniff. They're coming, she said. Good, I answered. I grew up on envelopes. Rent, gas, groceries, whatever's left. That discipline sticks. On my laptop, I built a simple sheet. Date, amount, who, why. When lines didn't have a why, I wrote ask. It's amazing what clarity does to your breathing. I cross-checked the credit card statements with the calendar, and the pattern marched in formation. Spa days that lined up with Daniel's conferences, consulting dinners at places that don't serve salad under $30. Anyone who's ever balanced a checkbook at the kitchen table with a pencil and a prayer knows this feeling. Proof replacing doubt. I opened a separate tab, my personal account, and verified the deposit trail from my job. Straight, boring, faithful. There's a pride in that. The blue-collar kind, even if you wear a badge to beep into an office. Ava watched me type. "You're obsessive," she said. "I'm organized," I replied. She rolled her eyes. "When people mock your order, they usually fear your clarity." The buzzer rang. Lauren. Lauren arrived with the storm face siblings wear when they've already picked a side. Purse strapped like armor, she scanned the room for villains and found one in me. "What did you do?" she asked, not really asking. If you've ever been the calm one at a birthday party gone sideways, you recognize the posture. Not defensive, deliberate. "Coffee?" I offered. Hospitality is a power tool when used right. Ava launched into her version, and Lauren nodded at the right moments like a metronome. I set mugs down and waited for the part where I'm a jealous husband who can't handle his wife having friends. There it was. "He's controlling," Ava said. Lauren's eyes sharpened. "That true?" she asked me. I shrugged. "I'm careful with money. I report crimes." No flourish, just nouns and verbs. Adults trust those. Lauren crossed her arms. "You're making this up." The room held its breath. That's when I picked up my phone. I opened the hidden album, the one labeled like a grocery list so no one would tap it by accident. "I'll show you once," I said. "Then you can decide." Older folks know the ground rule. Protect dignity even in a fight. I scrolled to messages with names and dates that matched hotel folios Catherine had handed me. Not the explicit parts, no one needs those, but the planning, the payments, the confidence. Lauren's face changed the way people change when a diagnosis goes from rumor to result. She took a step back, then forward, then sat. "Ava?" she asked, soft. Ava grabbed for a new script. "Data can be faked. Pixels can be altered. I'm a technician of deceit." "Cell forensics could verify it," I said. "We can do that tomorrow." I locked the phone and set it face down like a gavel. Lauren looked at me with something unexpected, respect edged with grief. "I need air," she whispered. She wasn't the only one. We spoke quietly, the way neighbors do through a fence when they both know the dog is theirs and the mess is too. "You're trying to ruin her," Ava said. "I'm trying to stop the bleeding," I answered. Anyone who's ever handled a family budget after a job loss knows triage language. You don't dramatize, you prioritize. I pointed at the ledger. "These amounts, these dates, why?" She didn't answer. "You destroyed us," she tried again. That line was getting old, like a song the radio won't stop playing. "You made choices," I said. "I made a report." Lauren watched us like a referee who hates the game but loves the rules. "What happens now?" she asked. "Tomorrow HR continues. Today, we breathe." I spoke to both of them, but mostly to myself. I rinsed the coffee mugs, lined them on the rack, and wiped the counter. Small order in big chaos. People in their 60s swear by it. The buzzer rang again. Another visitor? No one at the door this time, just a package slip, something Ava ordered with money that didn't smell like ours. I set it aside. "You can't touch my things," she snapped. "You're welcome to return anything bought with stolen funds," I said, and even I heard the courtroom in my sentence. I shut my laptop and did a house inventory, not with a clipboard, with my eyes. Lease in my name, utilities paid from my account, furniture largely mine from the pre-wedding apartment. If you've ever had to separate a garage after a move-out, you know the mental tagging. Keep, return, toss. I opened the hall closet and pulled down a shoebox with documents, birth certificates, passports, the wedding license that now looked like a brochure from a trip that never happened. I laid them on the table like a dealer setting out cards. "You should call a lawyer," I said, not unkindly. Grown-ups fight fair when they can. She didn't answer. She texted. Lauren's phone pinged first. Then mine. News moves faster than shame. The company had widened the investigation. Daniel's termination wasn't the end, just the start. I watched the realization pass over Ava like shadow from a cloud. The story she built didn't have a roof strong enough for weather. "We can fix this," she said, but her voice had lost its center. I thought of the men I respect, the ones who admitted their worst day and then made the next day their best. "Here's what happens," I said. "You gather your personal things. You stay with your sister for a bit. We keep this civil. I'll talk to HR and my lawyer. You can do the same." A simple plan with rails on it. Older audiences know rails keep trains from becoming headlines. She stared at me, hopeful for a fight I wouldn't give. "This isn't over," she said. "Correct," I replied, and opened the door for Lauren and for daylight. The balance had tipped. Lauren went quiet in a way older siblings do when the facts finally outrun the story. She closed her purse, stood, and said, "Pack what you need." Ava moved like someone walking through a dream she didn't order, drawer to drawer, a suitcase swallowing clothes without a plan. If you've ever helped a friend leave fast, bad landlord, worse boyfriend, you know the sound zippers make when they become decisions. I didn't help, and I didn't hinder. I printed a short list for myself, change passwords, freeze joint card, call attorney, and slipped it under a magnet on the fridge. Lauren wheeled the suitcase to the door, paused, and looked at me the way a neighbor does over a shared fence. Tired, sorry, not surprised. "We'll be in touch," she said. I nodded. The elevator dinged, swallowed them, and the apartment exhaled. Not peace, space. I washed 2 coffee cups and set them upside down to dry. It felt like closing a file. It felt like turning a page. By dinner, Ava's version hit Facebook like a church bell, loud, familiar, calling people to a side. She wrote about irreconcilable differences, about my temper, about misunderstandings blown out of proportion. Friends she hasn't seen since college chimed in with the usual replies. "You're so strong. Men don't get it." If you've ever watched a family argument move from a table to a timeline, you know the helpless, hollow feeling that follows. I opened the app, then closed it. My mother taught me not to fight in front of company. I wrote one sentence, then reread it like a lawyer reads a clause. Out of respect for privacy, I won't share details, but a workplace investigation is ongoing. No names, no blame, just weather. I posted, silenced notifications, and set my phone face down. Truth doesn't need a megaphone, it needs a record. I made dinner, eggs and toast, the Bachelor classic, and ate standing at the counter. Sometimes surviving the evening is the win. It didn't take long. My single line didn't draw cheers, but it moved the furniture. Under Ava's post, a cousin asked a real question. A coworker said they'd heard something at the office. A friend switched from "I'm so sorry" to "What happened?" Adults don't need fireworks to change their minds. They need a nudge and a reason. I answered no one. I folded laundry and let the drum of the dryer be my only noise. Around 10, my phone lit up with a number I recognized too well. Ava. I almost let it ring out. Then I picked up and said nothing. She started fast. Tears, breathless panic, a plea to take it down because her sister's kids were asking questions. I thought about every Little League coach who's ever said, "Play the ball where it is." I stated facts, I said. I won't discuss this on social media. Silence stretched so long you could hang a coat on it. Then the line went dead. Not 5 minutes later, a new number blinked. Unknown, local, official. "This is Detective Ray Anderson, Financial Crimes," a voice said. Calm, efficient, end of small talk. I sat down without meaning to. He thanked me for the HR complaint and asked if I could come in with "anything you've preserved." That phrase, "anything you've preserved," landed like a hand on my shoulder. If you've ever kept a receipt for a warranty or a medical report, just in case, you know the relief of being the adult who saved the paper. "Yes," I said. "I have emails, screenshots, timelines." He suggested morning. I agreed, then placed the phone on the table like a fragile thing. The apartment hummed, the fridge, the city, my pulse. I opened my laptop and built a clean folder. 01 HR, 02 Finance, 03 Messages, 04 timeline. Names matter when stakes do. I printed a hard copy for good measure. Printers never behave on big days. Mine did. Small mercies register louder at midnight. The next morning, the station smelled like coffee that's been working since 5 a.m. Fluorescents flatten everyone equally. Rookies, retirees, a man with a folder under his arm who never planned to be here. Detective Anderson had the look of someone who's seen more math than blood. Thick file, tired tie, steady eyes. We sat. I handed over copies. He didn't rush. He read. He asked for dates again, then amounts again, like a surgeon checking a chart before the cut. We're seeing patterns, he said. Not just dinners, disguised transfers, vendor kickbacks, small enough to hide, large enough to matter. He slid a page toward me, columns and totals, a number circled in red. $497,800 over 3 years. I let the shape of it sink in. If you've ever priced a house or a college, you know what that number feels like in your chest. He wasn't done. Some payments routed to an entity listed as AK Marketing Consulting. Ring a bell? AK, Ava Kane. The room got smaller. AK Marketing Consulting. I said it out loud like a spell that loses power when named. Anderson, tilting his head, told me he'd thought the same thing. We'll subpoena bank records, he said. But this aligns with charges already flagged. He tapped a line. Deposits matching restaurant dates, travel dates, hotel dates. If you've ever matched a teen's story to a gas receipt, you know the grim satisfaction of lines meeting. Did she ever mention a consulting business? He asked. Only to say she was networking, I answered, and the word tasted like dust. He explained how these schemes operate. Keep each expense small enough to dodge automatic review, spread them across departments, switch labels every quarter. Simple tricks last when no one looks closely. Then he thanked me for the organization. You made our job easier, he said. The compliment didn't feel good. It felt like putting sandbags in a flood. Necessary, heavy, ongoing. He stood. We'll be in touch. We shook hands like adults who know mornings change lives. Chicago in daylight looked honest again. Delivery trucks double parked, a dad with a stroller, a woman arguing gently with a barista about oat milk. Normal kept doing its rounds. I drove with the radio off and let the city be my soundtrack. Older men taught me to talk out loud when alone. It sorts thoughts without scaring anyone. Consulting, I said to the windshield. Not advice. Cover. I replayed Ava's greatest hits, the late nights, the industry events, the expensive restaurants billed as partnership dinners. A picture sharpened that I didn't want to hang in my home. I parked, sat for a minute, and watched a neighbor carry in dry cleaning. Even his hangers looked responsible. I wanted that feeling again. Order, predictability, Tuesdays that mean groceries. Upstairs, I put the detective's card on the fridge beside a photo of my parents at their 30th anniversary. They looked tired and proud. Staying is hard. Leaving is hard. Telling the truth might be the only easy part. I called my attorney, Patricia Mills, and gave her the 1-minute version any busy professional can parse. Marriage compromised, company funds misused, police involved. She didn't gasp or console. She calendared. Email me your folder, she said. We'll protect your position and keep you from making unforced errors. That phrase, unforced errors, belongs to tennis and grown-up life. I sent everything and asked what to expect. Illinois is no fault, she said, but courts care about money. Fraud can influence division. Keep your tone neutral. Don't taunt online. Don't move funds aside from normal bills. We want you looking like the adult in the room. I looked around my one bedroom and almost laughed. The adult in the room was a man making dinner for one and cleaning up the same night. Copy, I said. When we hung up, I wrote 3 to-dos on a sticky note. 1, credit freeze. 2, password vault. 3, box up valuables. Then I boxed, froze, and changed. It felt like locking doors in a storm. By afternoon, my one-sentence post was doing slow work. A colleague texted, "Hey man, you okay?" which is Midwestern for, "I know and I'm on your side." A neighbor offered to grab my mail if I traveled. Small kindnesses ring louder when big things crack. I walked to the corner store for dish soap I didn't need and came back with a clear head. On the stoop, Mr. Patel from 3B nodded in that quiet immigrant way that says, "We survive." Inside, I opened Facebook again, not to fight, but to observe weather. Ava's choir had thinned. Questions had replaced slogans. A friend asked about expense accounts. Another mentioned HR policy. People don't need spoon-fed drama. They need enough light to see their own way. I posted nothing. Silence is a tool adults use when words would waste energy. I put my phone down, opened the windows, and let real air in. The apartment didn't feel lonely. It felt honest. That's a start. Late evening, Detective Anderson called. "We traced AK Marketing," he said. "Funds linked to your wife's personal account and a secondary card. It's professional grade." The phrase professional grade drained what warmth the room had left. I sat at the table where we'd once planned vacations and compared flight prices. Now I compared deposits and dates. "We'll pursue charges beyond corporate policy," he added. "This isn't just bad judgment. It's a scheme." I thanked him, hung up, and stared at the ceiling until the lines blurred. There's a unique grief older adults know, the grief of realizing a person you love is also a person you don't know. It doesn't come with tears. It comes with decisions. I opened my laptop and wrote a single paragraph to myself, the way a coach writes a game plan on a whiteboard. She didn't just cheat, she conned. Respond like a man, not a boy. Calm voice, straight back, clean paper. I saved it. Then I slept like a witness. Morning brought coffee and a message I didn't expect. "I'm scared," Ava said, voice thin, practiced, almost childlike. Older adults know that tone, the one you hear after a bad bet or a blown paycheck, when the story tilts toward pity. I held the phone and looked out at a city that keeps its promises. Trains run, trash gets collected, bills come due. "You should talk to a lawyer," I said. Not cruel, clear. She pivoted to apologies, to the future we could still fix. I remembered Thanksgiving years ago, watching my uncle say no to a manipulative cousin without raising his voice. Boundaries are the adult version of bravery. "I can't be your cover," I said, and ended the call before her next script loaded. The quiet afterward wasn't relief. It was a door shutting on an echo. Then my phone buzzed again, another number, another wait. "Tom, it's Daniel," the voice said, smaller than I'd ever heard it. "We need to talk." She wasn't what I thought. We met at a diner where daylight is unkind, no shadows to hide in, just shiny vinyl and coffee that never clocks out. Daniel looked like a man who'd slept in his suit, edges frayed, pride gone. He didn't waste time on excuses. "She drove it," he said, fingers worrying a sugar packet. Amounts, categories, timing, she knew the audit thresholds. He slid his phone across the table. Text threads, methodical, chilly, oddly polite. Ava proposing labels, routes, limits, all couched as employee morale and relationship management. Anyone who's run a small business or chaired a booster club has seen this trick. Dress a wrong in administrative words and people nod. I scrolled, feeling that cold clarity older men talk about when they're done lying to themselves. "I thought I was in charge," he said. I wasn't. The waitress topped us off without asking, like a chaplain at a battlefield. I returned the phone. "She played us both," I said. He nodded, eyes finally meeting mine. "And she's not done." He kept scrolling, charts, little spreadsheets, projected benefits, and reminders to split charges across departments. In between were the hooks, compliments timed to approvals, flattery tied to expense windows. People my parents' age call it what it is, grooming for gain. I snapped a few photos for my records, careful to capture timestamps, not gossip. The older you get, the more you learn the value of the boring detail. Daniel swallowed hard. "She had a plan for every escalation," he said. "She called it dark cherry, sweet cover, dark pit." I felt something click in my chest, the way it does when a mechanic finally points to the exact bolt that's been rattling for months. Not only had she cheated, she'd architected it, marketed it, scaled it. "You need to tell the detectives all of this," I said. "I am," he answered. "But you should know, she'll spin this as coercion." He paid in cash, the universal language of shame. Outside, the wind off the lake cut honest. My phone buzzed. Catherine. "We need to meet," Catherine texted. When a woman like her writes that, you don't ask for context. You bring a folder and show up. We met in a lobby where the flowers are real and the smiles are practiced. She looked rested in the way only exhausted people learn, disciplined, not relaxed. "He's cooperating," she said of Daniel, "but there's more." She opened a slim file and slid it to me as if passing communion. Surveillance shots, date-stamped, Ava with different men at lunch counters and hotel bars, always crisp, always attentive. Invoices from a private investigator, bank summaries that spelled AK marketing in numbers. "This goes back years," Catherine said quietly. "Different cities, same pattern. If you've ever had a doctor say, 'We've seen this before,' you know the twin stab of dread and relief. Terrible, but not unique." I swallowed and nodded. "Thank you," I said. She held my eyes a beat longer than comfort allows. "You married a story," she said. "She writes them for a living." On my walk home, Lauren called from an unfamiliar number. Her voice carried a fatigue only family can cause. "I found a second phone in her bag," she said. "Different passcode, different world." She read names that were not friends, times that lined up with the investigator's photos, and notes that looked like dossiers, wives, hobbies, weak spots. Anyone who's coached teens or managed staff knows the feeling of discovering a hidden channel. There's the team you see, and the group chat that runs the season. "I'm sorry," Lauren whispered. "I defended her because she's my sister. But this..." She trailed off. I told her what Daniel and Catherine had shown me. Shared facts can be mercy. They replace shame with action. "What do you need?" she asked. "Keep that phone safe," I said. "And don't confront her. Let law handle law." We hung up, both older by a year. I reached my building, checked the mail, and found nothing. Emptiness can be a blessing. My phone buzzed again. Unknown. I let it go to voicemail. The message was nothing but breath and a soft click. Pressure without fingerprints. I sat at my table, the same table where we'd once planned vacations, and laid out the new puzzle. Daniel's threads, Catherine's photos, Lauren's second phone. Patterns settle into pictures when you stop wishing they don't. I opened a clean document and wrote in big letters, "Industrial espionage." Saying the hard thing plainly is a gift you give your future self. I listed what we had: multiple targets, coordinated timing, cover through consulting, payments in amounts that hide beneath auto audits. If you've ever watched a grown child finally name their addiction, you know the terrible relief of clarity with teeth. I emailed Detective Anderson. New evidence, private investigator files, second phone, possible multi-state scope. His reply came fast. "Let's meet. Today." The room felt smaller and safer at once. Naming wolves doesn't make them vanish. It does, however, get you out of the woods faster. Then Catherine pinged again. "One more thing." Catherine met me with a larger folder, the PI's map, she called it. It looked like a sales pipeline if sales were sins. 5 states highlighted, a trail of conferences, trade shows, charity galas. Same wardrobe, same playbook, different zip codes. "She rotates cities every few years," Catherine said. "When heat rises, she moves." The older you get, the more you understand systems. People aren't random. They repeat what works until it stops working. At the back of the folder sat a flowchart labeled collection, contacts to dinners, dinners to access, access to data, data to buyers. My stomach turned in a slow, adult way. Not dramatic, conclusive. "You're telling me she wasn't just milking a corporate card," I said. Catherine shook her head. "She harvested secrets and sold them." The word "sold" flattened the air. "I've already briefed Anderson," she added. "He's looping in a federal contact." When I walked out of that building, the city looked the same and nothing did. My marriage wasn't a mistake, it was a front. Lauren called again, voice shaking but steady. "There's more," she said. She staged something like this before. Different city. When a mark got nervous, she broke down and everyone backed off. Staging a crisis to reset the board, if you've ever worked in a school or a hospital, you've seen that tactic. Overwhelm the room until rules blur. I felt anger rise and then pass, like traffic you decide not to chase. "Document everything," I said. "Time, place, who was there." Adults learn to write the report you hope you never need. Lauren took a breath. I used to think you were the problem, she admitted. Now I just hope you get out clean. Her grace humbled me. You too, I said. After we hung up, I turned on a lamp I never use and sat in its honest light. This wasn't just a bad marriage, it was a business model with casualties. My phone buzzed. A text from Catherine. Coffee tomorrow? I have something you need to see. We met at a quiet place where the music stays under the conversation. Catherine slid a new folder across the table. The weight of it felt like a verdict. Inside, bank transfers tied to Shell LLCs, calendar invites labeled client development, travel receipts stapled to notes about targets. The PI had triangulated it all: locations, faces, statements. At the end, a short memo summing her role in 3 clean lines. Relationship asset, access vector, data exfil. I closed the folder. Words that cold don't belong in a marriage, and yet here we were. Catherine spoke softly. This is bigger than an HR problem. She was right. This wasn't gossip to shame a neighbor. This was a map for federal work. I'll take it to Anderson, I said. He's expecting it, she replied. We sat for a moment like 2 parents after a school meeting, knowing the next months would be paperwork and patience. When we stood, she squeezed my arm once. No slogan, just strength. I carried the folder like a living thing. Back home, I spread everything out: threads, photos, bank trails, PI notes, until my table looked like a crime show minus the music. The shape was undeniable. Ava wasn't an affair that got out of hand. She was an operator with a marriage-shaped mask. That realization didn't bring drama. It brought alignment. My job wasn't to win her back or burn her down. It was to tell the truth carefully, to the right people, in the right order, and then step aside. I called Anderson, confirmed our meeting, and asked one last question like a man double-checking a seatbelt. If this crosses state lines? He answered without ceremony. Then it crosses into federal. I thanked him and hung up. The apartment felt both smaller and safer, walls close enough to hold me, evidence strong enough to stand without me. I wrote one sentence on a sticky note and pressed it to the folder. She built a cover. I found the core. Then I turned off the light and let the dark tell the truth. We picked a diner with loud coffee and louder silverware. Good places hide microphones in plain sight. I wore the wire the detective gave me, taped where a tie would sit if I still believed in dress codes on Saturdays. Ava arrived 10 minutes late, the way people do when they want the upper hand. She opened with tenderness stretched thin. We don't have to be enemies. Older adults know that offer. It's a coupon that expires the moment you accept it. I kept my voice steady and simple. Walk me through the consulting. She tried words like networking, brand building, soft value. I kept bringing her back to dates, invoices, names. Her frustration unspooled. Fine, she said. Some payments were for me. The sentence hung there like a chandelier about to fall. I didn't flinch. I sipped burned coffee and nodded once, as if we were talking about return policies. In the window's reflection, I could see my own face. Not angry, not kind, accounting. She smiled like a cat. She hadn't yet noticed the wire. If you've ever played cards with an uncle who bluffs too often, you know the look when a tell shows up. Ava's was a fingertip tap, 3 beats on the table before a lie, 2 before a truth she didn't mean to share. I started asking questions with math in them. Amounts under audit thresholds, split charges over split quarters. Her tapping changed tempo. Everyone does it, she said. People say that when they feel alone and want company in the boat, they drilled holes in. I leaned back, let the seconds stack, then asked the kind question that isn't. Who taught you the thresholds? She blinked. No one. The third tap didn't come. That silence was a confession my recorder could keep. She reached for her bag for lip balm, glanced down, and that's when she saw it. Just a shadow of tape near my collar. Her pupils tightened, a slow smile that wasn't warm. She leaned in, voice too low for the room, perfect for the mic. You don't know what you've stepped into. The week turned noisy. My car wore a fresh key line down its side like a signature nobody owns. My mailbox vomited its contents onto the lobby floor. Calls came at 1 a.m., 3 a.m., 5 a.m., breathing, clicks, an old song from nobody's playlist. If you've ever stood watch over a sick kid, you know the specific ache of sleep stolen in teaspoons. The body keeps the ledger. I filed reports, saved voicemails, and bought a cheap camera for the hallway. The detective called it pressure without fingerprints. That sounded right. It didn't scare me as much as it wore me. You don't fear the drip, you fear the rot. I called my mother just to hear her talk about the garden. Tomatoes doing well, deer doing better. Normal is a kind of armor. Then Friday at dusk, a black sedan slid to the curb like it knew my name. Rear door opened. Two men in suits that had never seen a church gesture small and wide. "Mr. Bennett," a voice said. "We need a word." I slid in because sometimes the safest place is the one with light and witnesses, not a sidewalk where anything can happen without a camera. The man was silver-haired, 60 if he'd been lucky, eyes like the part of winter that doesn't forgive. "Richard Blackwood," he said, name like a door closing. He studied me the way bankers study requests. "Withdraw your complaint. Harrison is expendable." The sentence was efficient, cruel, and absolutely bored. I thought of every boss who ever tried to make a mess sound like policy. "No," I said, polite as a handshake. His smile didn't reach his face. "Your mother's facility relies on timely insurance approvals. Your sister's firm handles cash. Your building's sprinklers. Pass inspection?" He let the questions sit between us like open windows in January. Older men taught me a rule. If someone lights a match near your family, you treat it like fire, not theater. My knuckles tightened on my knees. "I'm not withdrawing," I said. "Then we'll adjust expectations," he replied. The sedan turned toward the lake. We stopped in a warehouse district where sound goes to learn caution. He let me out like a gentleman, which is how predators pretend the world is civilized. Under a sodium light stood Ava, the robe long gone, a navy suit that made her look like a corporate brochure for betrayal. "Marriage?" she said, as if reading the word from a file. "A cover. But I did care. A little." People my parents' age know that little is the cruelest unit, just enough to sell, never enough to save. I didn't answer. Blackwood spoke with the patience of a dentist. "Here's the bargain. You call your detective, retract involvement, frame Harrison as a midlife cliché. We erase the edges of your life. You get to keep the middle." He was offering me a future without corners. "I need time," I said, "because adults stall when the road ahead is mined." He nodded, smug, certain. As the sedan pulled away, Ava stepped closer. "Take the deal," she whispered. "This is bigger than both of us." For once, we agreed. At home, I called Detective Anderson, then my attorney, then Catherine. I told them everything. Blackwood, the threats, the warehouse. Adults learn the sequence. Law, counsel, witness. "We need federal," Anderson said, "and we'll need you wired again." My stomach answered before my mouth could, but I said yes because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand still while the professionals aim. Catherine's voice was a clean knife. "If we bring this to the right agent, they'll move," she said. I sent copies of everything. The diner confession, the harassment logs, the sedan's plate from a traffic cam the universe kindly provided. Patricia, my lawyer, kept me from heroics. "No lone wolf stunts," she said. "You're not a movie. You're a file we want to win." I slept in shoes by the bed like a parent with a newborn, ready for whatever broke. In the morning, I shaved slow, put on a shirt with a collar, and wrote 3 words on a card in my pocket: calm, clear, federal. Blackwood's office sat near the top of a building that pretends gravity is negotiable. I checked in with a receptionist who smiled like she learned it from glass. Inside the conference room waited Blackwood, 2 men made of gym and silence, and Ava, crisp, professional, poisonous. I could hear the wire in my heartbeat. "Well," he said, as if we were equal partners confirming a shipment. I set a folder on the table, copies of copies, bait more than meal. "I'm not withdrawing," I said, and let the sentence sit. "That's disappointing." He glanced at Ava. She tilted her head in faux regret. I remembered my father teaching me, when a man looks past you to a woman for permission, he's already lost something. I took a breath and played my small card big. "Agent Coleman sends her regards." The room flinched, just a fraction, like a deer hearing the wrong crack in the woods. Blackwood's eyes cooled another degree. "You involved federal?" he asked. I didn't answer. Sometimes silence is an answer that signs its name. I didn't see the agents until I heard the door. Federal presence doesn't announce itself with music. It arrives with paperwork and posture. Agent Patricia Coleman stepped in, plain suit, steady chin, 3 other agents fanning like parentheses. "Richard Blackwood," she said, "you're under arrest for conspiracy, racketeering, and industrial espionage." The security men froze in that exact pose companies teach at seminars, hands halfway to nowhere. "Ava Kane," Coleman continued, "fraud and witness intimidation." Ava didn't look at the floor or me. She looked at the window, like the city might offer a ladder. For a beat, I felt pity, which is a human reflex and not a strategy. The wire caught everything: names, threats, the bargain offered in the night. Blackwood tried for charm, for outrage, for a phone call. Federal has a way of leaving those numbers in another room. They cuffed him, then her, and the sound wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Some closures don't slam, they seal. The agents walked them out, and the room looked cheap without their confidence in it. Coleman turned to me. "You did well," she said. "No confetti, just the sentence adults use when a hard job finds a solid back." My knees wanted a chair. My pride wanted quiet. "Your wire got enough," she added. "We'll widen from here." I nodded and thought of all the small choices that stacked to this. A screenshot labeled right, a voicemail saved, a refusal said calmly in a car that smelled like leather and threats. People in their 60s know the truth. Life isn't one big moment. It's 100 small ones that leaned the same direction. Outside the elevator, I paused and looked out over the lake. Water keeps its promises. It finds low places and fills them. Back on the street, the city was still selling lunches and parking tickets. I walked 2 blocks with my hands empty and my shoulders lower. This wasn't triumph. It was the absence of fear, and that felt like oxygen. Blackwood got 20 years. Daniel took probation and disappeared into a quieter life. Ava pled, then mapped the network for the feds, names like pins on a map I'll never visit. I kept my job. My apartment smells like coffee again, not strategy. Some nights I still wake to the old noise, then remember. The threats are gone, the locks hold, the inbox is clean. Her letter came through the prison system. Thin paper, careful script. "You deserved better." People our age know that sentence can heal or reopen. I read it once at the sink, then touched a match to the corner. The flame worked slow, then sure. Some endings need ash. Here's what I learned. The worst betrayal isn't sex. It's trust turned into a weapon. Your faith, sharpened and used back on you. But truth has a longer burn. It steadies your hands. It returns your name. If this were your story, what would you choose next? Walk away and build, or burn it all down and watch the glow? Type it below. 1. Walk away, or 2. Burn it down.